Hey, it's Mike Rhyner of Your Dark Companion here. And what if you could free yourself of pain, anxiety, and sleepless nights? And what if you could do it naturally? At the CBD House of Healing, that's what they do. They're a women-owned CBD boutique. They would like to help. They carry only products from their lab made to meet the highest quality and purity standards. Their owner is also an RN. That's very, very significant. And she emphasizes building trusted relationships through education. Giving you the knowledge to care for yourself is their ultimate goal. That's what they're all about there. Find your relief from the aches, pains, the emotional stress and drain, and sleep again. Does that sound good to you? Bet it does. CBDDallas.com, 8550 Plano Road, Suite 101, Dallas. Begin your healing at the House of Healing. Let me tell you about Smoky Rose, the Tex-Mex barbecue joint that is in the heart of their community over there in East Dallas. If you're a denizen of East Dallas, I know you know about it. I know that you've been there because they serve meats that are smoked in their wood-burning smoker. It's low and slow. That's the right way to do this. It brings out the best flavors, and every item is made with the highest quality ingredients. Every bite is as good as the last. The drinks are made with special care and the vast knowledge of their owner, the great David Cash. They are located in East Dallas, right across the street from the Arboretum. Smoky Rose has the perfect seat for you on their patio. It's open year-round. You can enjoy your food and drinks out there while taking in the beautiful surroundings. Brunch on Sundays, check. Happy hour, 3 to 6, check. 8602 Garland Road, check. It is Smoky Rose. And we, Your Dark Companion, are going to be there on the 19th of September. We will be there from 4 until 6 with a nice live podcast for you. That'll be followed by live music with Bill Brooks. So come see us September 19th at Smoky Rose. Nobody would have thought that I would be the one. Rhyner, Sports Talk. Baseball, 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 baseball. Oh, with the big mic. Oh, okay. All right, yeah. Okay, now I get it.
We got a lightning strike, boys. What happened over there, Grego? We had a little lightning strike right outside the window.
All right. Here's a tip for all these Americano League teams.
Wait, you said tip?
Yeah, tip.
Okay.
With a P.
Keep jamming.
The ticket, nothing but a big Gen X jerk-off sale.
This is a cool night or what?
Although somebody would hear that and go, bullshit.
I'm back, bitches.
What's up, guys and dolls? It is time for another episode of Your Dark Companion. Warmest greetings to each and every one of you, no matter where you are, no matter when or how or even why you may be setting aside a little time for this podcast transmission. We're glad you're here. I would be Mike Rhyner, coming to you live today from the nurturing biosphere of the mothership. We got the whole crew here. Ashley is here. Shoopy is here. The boss lady, Becca, is around here somewhere. And today we have one of the more interesting raconteurs that we have in the music scene here in our Fairburg. He is Edwin Cabaniss. And he runs the Kessler Theater. Hi, how you doing?
Good to see you, Mike. How you doing?
Good to see you, Edwin. It's been a while, man.
It's been a while.
Are you the owner?
I'm the owner, yeah.
Okay, the owner. All right,
There's other people that run it these days.
Okay, I've already screwed up one thing.
No, that's all
I
right.
undersold you.
No.
This is the owner of the Kessler. So if you ever have a bad experience over there and you want to go right to the top, find him.
Oh, my goodness. That's not the way that's supposed to go. You're supposed to find Jeff Lyles. He's a staple over there.
Yeah,
He is
definitely
a
bother
staple
Lyles
over there.
instead.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's there all the time.
Yeah. He's kind of Edwin's middleman.
He's the top dog. I mean, he is art and I'm commerce. How about that?
Okay, that's
you go.
fine. That's
right.
good. How you been?
Things are good. I'm, excited about the Cowboys. ready to put the pin in this thing on the Rangers this year, and to wait for the Mavericks to show up. So it's a good time. Fall's always a good time in Dallas.
Yep, it is a good time. What'd you think about that game the other day? That was a pretty solid thwacking, I thought.
I thought so too. Yeah. Which game are we talking about?
Cowboys.
Oh yeah. They had really, really good. We'll see. I don't live to it day to day. I've kind of been transitioned or conditioned maybe from the Rangers 60 games that I go to a year, right? I try not to live and die by them one-on-one. We'll see where we're at, kind of how we're playing and how healthy we are as we get to the playoffs. But I did enjoy that. I watched every minute, and I did play it back twice. So
yeah, and like I say, there is not much not to like from what we saw the other day. But we've been here before with this thing.
We have been. Let's go 12-5, which is great, right? And then let's get to the playoffs, stop the run, see where we end up.
Yeah. Take your chances there. That's what every coach, every manager I've ever known has said. Let's just get into the tournament and see what happens then. Take our chances with all that. How are things over at the Kessler?
Kessler's going real well. We are in that transition. We've been doing this now 15 years, so it's kind of like a migration. We understand who's coming through and when. So most of the summers and generally in January, we've got a lot of local shows that we do. It's really an opportunity to get our regional heroes into the rooms. And then about mid-September all the way through about mid-May, it's the national tours that come through. So just this past weekend, we had a kid that we like a lot. A kid, I guess he's 22. Is that a kid?
That's a kid.
Yeah, okay.
That's definitely a kid.
Well, he's got a wife and a family and a mortgage, and he's a traveling artist. His name's Thomas Shorba. We're real high on Thomas, and he had his record release. And then, of course, we've been doing a series, our 6th one on Monday, with another local hero named Joshua Ray Walker.
Oh, yeah.
Which we could talk a little bit, who's been in the news lately.
Yes, he has.
But yeah, that's really very much the local music scene. And then we start getting into Lay Loam, and we start getting into, a lot of other bands. I counted up between now and year end. We have 140 events across all our venues between now and year end. So we're about to get into the busy season.
What other venues are you speaking of other than the Kessler?
So the Kessler was the model. It's our namesake, obviously. Proud of it. It's in my neighborhood, and it's our very first one. And we kind of got into a position where we didn't know if we wanted to go vertical and maybe when acts were starting to outgrow the Kessler, get a bigger venue, or if we wanted to replicate what we were doing at the Kessler in other cities. And at that point in time, we looked at going bigger with a historic music venue called the Longhorn Ballroom. And this is about 2015. We were looking at that. And as it turned out, Houston was having a little pullback in their economy, and this great theater called the Houston Heights Theater came up for sale, and we bought that. So it was almost a carbon copy of the Kessler down in Houston, and we did that.
Yeah, that's what I've always heard about that is Houston's Kessler.
It is. It's a little bit bigger, and we got there. Houston's a little more spread out, and it's a bigger city, of course, but it's a lot more spread out. And we're kind of like the Bubba Gump shrimp. You remember when Bubba Gump went out on the shrimp boat and the storms blew in and all the boats were gone? We rolled into town, and we'd been there a couple of years, and then Hurricane Harvey hit. Yeah. And knocked a lot of independents out. It's about 3 or 4 of us, really, truly independents that were doing some business. And then the pandemic came in, knocked some more out. And then finally there was a couple of, there's a lot of smaller independents down there. And then, one of them just got rolled up by a big company. So we feel like we're kind of one of the last independents standing down there. There's a lot more in Houston, but it's turned out to be a great venue. We get a lot of great shows down there, and it's as busy as any of our venues.
How many independents would you say there are here in our Fairburg?
Well, I didn't know that number, but it's surprising. I actually led the legislation for Save Our Stages back when we were going through some really difficult times. It was a bill for Senator Klobuchar and Senator Cornyn put together, and we had to go figure out what defines a music venue first and foremost. It was a huge lift and a huge group effort, and we found out in Texas alone, to be defined as a music venue, which there's a lot of different stipulations of what that is, there were over 800 music venues throughout the state of Texas, and we're the second largest market on number of venues in Texas behind Austin. So I would say probably 125 if you talk about North Texas generally.
Mm-hmm. Like what kind of room are we talking about here?
Well, the Granada would be a good example. The Kessler would be a good example. But, I mean, you can go to Ruins, something like that, the Deep Ellum Art Company, those kind of places.
Yeah.
Those are rooms. They historically had lumped places like Sambuca that might have jazz and a pretty good music scene on it, but they kind of lumped them into the hospitality and the restaurant side.
Would Dan Silverleaf be among there?
Absolutely, yeah. And the former Rubber Gloves and all those great places up in Denton. And, that's one of the things that I look at in North Texas, and a lot of people, when you get to go out and, kind of represent the Texas brand across the country with a lot of things we can get into a little bit later. But, that's what I tell people. I said, we're three-legged stool here between Denton, Dallas, and Fort Worth. Mm-hmm. Not to mention some really cool things that happen over in Arlington and some of the maybe down to Waxahachie and what have you. But you got to look for it a little bit. But it's here. It's a big touring market. It's the third largest touring market in the country.
I understand very little, and I know this is going to sound maybe a little weird because my connection with music goes way, way back. But over the years, I've learned partly because of my lack of interest for a while, but now I'm kind of ashamed of it to say. I know very little about how you guys go about doing what you're doing, figuring out what act is right for your room, getting that act in there, the entire process of what you do and what the think behind it is.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to illuminate
share all my
bit?
secrets?
Yeah.
Well, it's we're in a huge transition right now of how people get information about finding new bands. So we could talk about that because it is a transition. But historically, as you were coming up and as I was coming up, probably till pre-pandemic, if you will, a lot of the things you would do is you'd go out and you would hear through your weekly rag, The Observer or what have you. This before podcasts and things of that nature. But there were some bloggers. They would tell you kind of who's coming up, and then you would have your trusted promoters in the region that would say, hey, here's someone you should come and check out. And so that's the way it was. You would listen to live music and then you would go see it and, word of mouth would spread. And then, with all the social media, now it's a pretty amazing top-down driven model that's changing things on its head. We can talk about Zach Bryan, who's really popular right now, and how he broke he went from literally serving in the Navy, dropping 30 songs on Spotify. I saw him at Under the Big Sky 2.5 years ago at the 3:00 slot, which is typically not your headliner, probably a $15,000 spot, which means someone thought he was going to be pretty good. To last year, I saw him headline it, 35,000 people looking at it, and now he's sold out Cowboy Stadium. That's how quick it can go these days. Doesn't happen always, but that's the highest, fastest trajectory I've ever seen. But we're still pretty old school. What that really means is I've got a lot of folks that are out there listening to music. We consume music. Everybody on my staff loves music, right? And they go. So I really, being from Longview, I grew up on country and Western, right? With
both of them, yeah.
Yeah, both of them. And a little bit of rock and roll mixed in. So it's music I like, but I quickly figured out on the business side, if you just do music you like, you might not be able to make a sustainable living. As mentioned, Jeff Lyles, he's got a long history. He's kind of a legendary guy who's put on some amazing shows. He's a little older than I am, but, he kind of grew up on rock and roll and punk and those kind of things, so he kept me in that lane. And then we ended up hiring a guy out of Houston, our senior talent buyer named Mark Austin. And, he's from Louisiana. He's a little closer to that New Orleans, that soul side. He managed the soul band, so he's kind of our guy there. So you start with that, you start putting on shows, and then the next thing you know, Diana Cox, who's one of our, she's a vice president, probably one day, in the future she'll take over in the president's role, and y'all that'll be who you reach out to when things aren't going right? You can reach out to Diana. She's the lead singer in a punk rock band, and so it comes from a lot of places, and then you start to stay on brand with who you are. and our brand is authentic, genuine music, right? And, what starts to happen is friends and bands and agents, they start to know. And it really is almost like this time of the year, it's a little more like, air traffic control. There's, 10 planes trying to land in 4 days each week. But you got to be nice. You got to try to land all the planes, because July, August, and January, the script is flipped, and that's when you're going out and being a direct solicitor. Who do you got? Who can come in? Because all of a sudden all those planes are going elsewhere, because nobody really wants to come to Texas in July and August. So that's a real opportunity for us to really, all the great local artists, and I'm not to say that we give local artists the opportunities to try to come in and, open for someone that's going to sell 2,000 tickets. That does them an immense amount of good. But we also try to give them their own shows when the runway clears a little bit.
What kind of band would you be talking about there? That you might...
A specific example?
Yeah, sure.
Well, someone, a household name that people were probably catching on to. If they hadn't, you should check him out. A young man named Charlie Crockett. Charlie Crockett was kind of, from the North Texas area and South Texas. Been around, went to New Orleans, was kind of busking, and he came back in about the time Leon Bridges was coming on the scene. But Charlie always had the look. You didn't know who he was, but he would sit at your bar, and he looks just like Charlie Crockett looks like now. I mean, always dressed to the nines, like he stepped out of a Stetson commercial or something, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't have a lot of songs, and and he just grinded. And now he's on about his 11th album. He's got some pretty amazing stuff. He's got an album out right now as a tribute to his time in Dallas. But that's the kind of cat that would come through. And he was busking. There's a great funny story that he told on the stage. He came out and sold out the Longhorn, which is another venue we'll get to that we own, 2,200 capacity, and we put him on sale, and Charlie sold it out in about 15 minutes back earlier this year. But he told this story from the stage, and Lyles was there, and Charlie was up here, and he was a hustler. He was trying to put on shows, probably because he had to pay the rent. He was getting $500 a show, and he was probably playing 10 of them. And he had a little hustle. What he would do is he'd put his CD on the back of the toilets in the men's room. He couldn't get in the ladies' room. Maybe he had someone that was doing that. And he said, man, the first time I ever played the Kessler, he said, I was really, really doing some, making some headway. I'd put those on there, and I'd go run my traps about every 10 minutes, and they were all gone. And he said at the end of the show, he said what became to be Jeff Lyles, he didn't know him at the time, this guy with these long dreads and smelling like weed kind of gave him the old, hey, come here, buddy. And Lyles had all of his CDs right there, He said, what the hell are you doing, And he said, man, I'm hustling. That's it. People find my music. That's how I'm distributing it and stuff. And I don't know if they agreed or disagreed, and, but they negotiated a deal on the spot. And he said, why don't you ever give me a gig over at the Kessler? And he said, because you're too available. You're playing all these other places. This needs to be something, a pinnacle that you reach to. And he said, let me ask you, how much do you make a month? Charlie told him, he said, what if I can get you a gig for that amount of money? Would you stay out of the market for the next 30 days? He said, well, of course I would. That was in 2015. Charlie Crockett comes in and opens for Joe Ely. And I don't think Charlie's been hustling since then like that. He sure as hell ain't been putting his CDs on the back of toilets.
Yeah.
And now Charlie's, demanding and commanding, he'll probably be, when we, again, get a little ahead of ourselves, our amphitheater, Charlie might be one of the first guys that we put in our amphitheater and probably sell 5,000-6,000 tickets these days.
Now, what is this amphitheater you speak of?
I don't know how long we're going to be here. Maybe the cat's out of the bag. That's a 2025 thing, Mike. I'm just trying to get through fall, but
well, we all are, but 2025 is not that far away.
Yeah, I get it. So, so we made a really, I don't know. I'm going to regress a little bit. I used to be on the board at the SMU Athletic Forum. Have you ever been out to one of their luncheons back in the day?
No, I never have.
Yeah, so they put on the Doak Walker Award.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure if they're still doing it. This is probably 10, 15 years ago. They still do. Great. It's a great organization, and it really puts a high profile on the Doak Walker, which is the high signature event. But one of the things that they did was they would put on 4 luncheons a year. And I don't know what the budget is. Let's just say it's $100 for the whole year. It's a lot more than that. They'd come in and say, well, who can we get for $35? Who can we get for $20? And through over the course of time, you'd have some good speakers and you'd have some less. And it turned out sometimes the people you didn't know about were the best speakers. But one speaker was Steve Young. And I distinctly remember from this time that Young was talking about his time on the bench in San Fran, following the great Joe Montana. Right. And he just said there was a period in time where I just sit and I could be starting, 28 other teams at the time, whatever it was, but I was following Joe Montana. And when I finally got my time, he said, when I stepped up to the line, I could read the defense. I knew everything that was going to happen, and I was still in good enough athletic ability to do something about it, right?
Yeah.
So he said those were the salad years. So you ask a simple question. I'm a fifth-generation Texan, so it takes me a while to get to the answer. But here's the answer.
If there's one thing we got around here, it's time.
There you go. And we got a good editor, so we can pare this down if we need to. So the reality is I kind of thought I was done. I was living a pretty decent life. I had the Kessler, I had the Heights. We had a little third operation out of Austin called the 04 Center. And then the Longhorn Ballroom came up for sale. And I felt like
couldn't resist, could you?
Steve Young in the back of my head saying, you got enough experience to do this, and you're still young enough to do it. And if not you, who? And if not now, when? So we ended up out of the pandemic, when it was in bankruptcy, really started doing our homework and our research, and ultimately became owners of the Longhorn Ballroom.
Man, I have been by that place so many times when it's just been sitting there. And if there's anything going on in there, I had no idea what it was, no idea who it was, certainly not for the purpose for which it was intended.
Right.
And I've just been waiting for somebody to bring it back. And
Mike, the wait's over, brother.
The wait is over.
The wait is over.
It's so over that I have been to one show there. And might go to another tomorrow night, in fact.
Who do we got tomorrow night?
I believe Dave Mason, don't you?
Unfortunately, Mr. Mason has called, let me see. Now I'm going to get into a little bit of trouble. Due to unforeseen circumstances, Mr. Mason's tour, including our venues, have been canceled.
Ooh, so it's gig off.
It's gig off. Have you ever had a gig off in your travels?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've had so many gig offs, it's not even funny.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't know we were going to go down that road. I'd love to hear about the gig offs a little later.
What'd you do?
Yeah.
Well, you just pack up your shit and go home. That's all you can do when it's gig off.
Well, the nomenclature is unforeseen circumstances, but Dave was selling really, really well. It was already a reschedule from before.
Yeah, I was really wanting to go the one before, too.
Yeah. He's a great dude. We've had a lot of successful shows, and he's a good human, and, we're sad that we're not going to get to do this show. But that's show business. For us, The show goes on. Always, right?
Always.
Right. But I understand due to unforeseen circumstances, sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. And we got a little more conditioned over the pandemic. We had a lot of false starts of getting back and started and what have you. So this is not new ground for us. It's disappointing for the fans. It's disappointing for us. So I'm glad we talked. I would hate to see you down there because you would say, I don't know what's going on in there. And Mike would be out by the gate and everybody's,
Yeah.
It'd
be showtime and I'd be standing by the front door going, man, the hell?
Yeah.
That would have been hilarious. We would have sent a camera crew.
Well, if you'd like, we can go down there and reenact it.
Just standing in an empty parking lot.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah, what the hell? Is that nobody coming out for Dave?
Yeah.
Dave let me just say to his credit, I mean, he has a good following, and it was going to be a ripping good time. Good show, lots of people. But when you're on venues in other cities, you don't just cancel out on Dallas. You got canceled in Houston as well, and it's a big deal. But everybody gets all their refunds, and we live to fight another day. So
yeah. Well, I did go see the Polyphonic Spree.
Oh yeah,
at the Longhorn.
That's great.
And I must say, the place was excellent.
Well,
just really excellent for a show like that, and we had a great time there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying so. We that high production and what Tim and those guys do at Polyphonic is really magical, and it's I don't know how many people they have on the stage, but that stage was originally built for Bob Wills and his band, right? Mm-hmm. And back in the day, we get into this a little more later, but you'd have Count Basie and these big jazz bands as well. So it wasn't the first time you had 18 to 20 people on the stage performing, and Polyphonic did a fine job, and good people, lots of theatrics and all those kind of fun things.
Oh yeah.
They've got something.
It's an amazing spectacle.
Well, yeah, they're great, and we've I'm really excited to see they've got something. I don't know what it is, but it's up in Denton once again. That's their scene, some sort of, their version of. I don't know if it's their version of what's going on in Vegas these days, but I mean, I understand it. It sounds cool. I'm ready to go see it. Have you been hearing about this?
This Cosm thing?
Yeah, this Cosm thing.
Yeah, I've heard a good bit about it. In fact,
okay.
Everybody that has been that I've talked to says that it's unbelievable.
I think it's the same technology in a different location.
Yeah,
similar.
I'm seeing it's at the UNT Planetarium.
Yeah, they're at the planetarium.
Interesting.
So there's a new thing, Mike, and I know this will. I mean, I'm sure you were going to the planetariums and watching that Led Zeppelin kind of laser light show back in the '80s. Do you remember?
Oh yeah,
right. So they've actually come up with something very similar but different, and it's called video mapping. It's kind of some of the cool stuff they're doing at the Sphere in Vegas and other places. My understanding is the technology came out of the Cirque du Soleil folks that are based out of Canada, and they started doing some really cool video mapping type stuff. And it just takes a light show to an extraordinarily different level. And then you backdrop music or whatever. So I think Polyphonic is a band built for this type of technology, and I look forward to seeing it. We tried something like that a couple of weeks ago. Of course, when you leave Lyle's and and he did it, a very planetarium type, end of the world type thing, and we did one at the Kessler a few weeks ago, and it was extraordinarily well received. So I believe Lyle's has got something up his sleeve to do another thing like that after the first of the year.
He's always got something up his sleeve.
He is art and I'm commerce.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. And that's a really good way to put it, and a really good mix for you guys.
Yeah. It's worked 15 years. If you let me get a little liberty of the first time I met, I'd love to tell you about that, because there was no way this was going to work, right? We had bought this old theater in Oak Cliff, and I tried to talk to a couple of people. I talked to some friends of mine. Jesse was kind of writing at the Observer, and he's like, well, here's a few people to call. And of course, I bring out, kind of straight out of Central Casting, Angus Wynn.
Yeah.
Right. And, figured the Wynn family's got history in Oak Cliff, and Angus didn't really know me, but he took the meeting, and he drives up in his Porsche, and he's got, his head shining like a silver dollar.
He's got that whole Angus Wynn thing happening.
He's got it, man. And I showed him, and he's like, man, wow, man, are you really going to do this? Are you really going to try to bring back a music venue in Oak Cliff? And he was nice, and he was cordial, and he said, I wish you the best of luck, but this is not for me. But let me tell you about a friend of mine, and that was Jeff Lyles. And he described Jeff. He said, I don't know how old Jeff is, but he's eternally youthful.
Yes.
Yeah. So I go and we meet. I meet Lyles, and he's kind of saying, how do we know each other? I said, you'll recognize me. I said, I'll be the guy. I'm the guy in there with the coat and the tie. I said, I will recognize you. He said, I'm the guy in there with the dreadlocks. And anyway, we met for the first time, and I was just like, oh my goodness, is this going to be it? And within about 15 minutes, we kind of figured out that neither one of us had the other person's skill set, and we both, he went chapter and verse and told me Oak Cliff. I mean, I want to hear about your Oak Cliff story, but he said the greatest venue, in Dallas was in Oak Cliff. And of course, he was talking about the Bronco Bowl. Mm-hmm. He told me the time his date ran off with the drummer for NXS. And, at that point I was like, well, he's like, I quickly realized he had millions of stories like that. And I said, well, what are you doing? And he said, well, I'm out in L.A. Can you get me back? And I said, I think so. So we made up some job for him or whatever. And away we went a year and a half.
So he actually left here and moved to L.A. for a while?
Yeah, he was managing the famed Roxy Theater back there.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he was doing voiceover work. He's got such a distinct voice.
Yeah.
And he was doing voiceover work by day and managing the Roxy by night and settling out. And I think he had got, when that happened to him, I think he had, in Deep Element kind of blown up. I think he was a little disillusioned. He can tell you, he'd be a great guest for you, but he'll tell you
on it.
Yeah, he'll tell you what was going on. But I think he was looking to come back to Dallas and needed that. So that was 2009.
Yeah,
he'd been gone a couple of years for sure.
So let me tell you about the Kessler Theater.
You do tell me, man.
Well, I all throughout my youth, I drove down, I drove down Davis any number of times, both as a kid and as a very, very young adult when I lived over in that part of the world. And I never, not once, saw anything up on the marquee, anything that would give the thought or the vibe of anything at all happening there.
Yeah.
I was never in there for anything. And I always wondered why, I mean, if they can turn a bowling alley in Oak Cliff into a music venue, why couldn't they do this with this theater, which has got nothing going on in it? Or I don't know, some of the other old theaters that they had over there at the time. Mm-hmm. I guess it just takes the right guy, the right time, the right place, all those kinds of conditions lining up, and boom, there you go. But man, to see what you've done with it since you've had it has just been, it's really brought back those thoughts to me, what I used to think of it, and you've turned it into everything that I thought it could be and should be. And it's just been amazing to watch somebody take something like that, or which was really nothing, and turn it into something.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Those are very kind words. And, everything has its time and place. You're right. And you kind of like with the Longhorn, I might be a little bit early at the Longhorn, but with the Kessler, I had been living over there since I moved. I'm an Oak Cliffer since 1998. I know you're probably gone by then and maybe back around. Yeah. But, we moved in and it was pretty, we could still hear the gunshots with the crack houses on Kings Highway, funny anecdotal story, and I'll get back on track, is my father-in-law. I'd proposed to my wife, Lisa, so she was my fiance. Kind of had to get that check box before we moved in together. And I just remember him saying, I acknowledged and gave my blessings for you to marry my daughter. And my father-in-law, she's from Iowa. She's from a, conservative kind of farming, German farming. I mean, they're just real matter of fact. He's like, I don't know about this neighborhood. What do you think? And I said, well, a lot of people with double income, no kids, coming into this neighborhood, which is code word for, the gay and lesbian community are moving in, which is always, we were totally fine with it. It's always a good bet. If you're rolling with those guys, everything's going to be great, right? Because they're going to put time and attention. Turned out to be a great, great neighborhood. We lived over there and we love it. But from a financial standpoint, things started slowly getting cleaned up. So fast forward about 2 years ago, this is, 25 years later, and we're sitting at the proverbial round table in this small, Iowa farm town where everybody gets there before they even turn the lights on. The coffee's on and all the farmers. I've been down there about 10 times. And out of the blue, my father-in-law says, yeah, that's so Edwin. He's in the music business, but he's really in the real estate business. And I remember when I told him what a great investment it was going to be to move into Oak Cliff, and their area is doing so well. I was like, you tell it, Ron. That's exactly how that story went down. But it was a little cutting edge. But I'd been down there and I could see the turn taking place. There was a guy named Dave Spence working with a guy named Jim Lake, and I could see how intentionally they were going about redoing Bishop Arts District. And it was not a lot of change that were coming in. They were looking for mom and pops. And then as that started moving out, I could see it starting to come down the street. Of course, Kessler was always pretty strong. Winnetka Heights was strong, and then Kings Highway. But back when we moved in, we were getting in for $80 a square foot on our house, and I don't think we're ever going to see that again. But I could tell the economy and people were starting to get hip to the idea that Oak Cliff was going to be cool, and there was already a lot of creatives over there, and it was opportunistic. But I'd been over there 8 years, and I'd loved that building too, just like you. But then I was like, hey, this might actually be something cool.
Oak Cliff's very, very underrated. Always has been, always will be. Because for whatever reason, the cool people, the decision makers, the movers and shakers around here look down on it. Like it's kind of a, stepsister or something like that. But you can't find a more scenic place here in our Fairburg than that.
I agree, and sometimes that's what attracts you.
Yeah.
But I will say, there's some really fantastic things that are taking place now, and it's been a long time coming. Right. Oak Cliff's on the rise for sure. There's some really neat things. There's going to be some significant, we've been a part of it. The Kessler and myself, my family have been a part of the new Oak Cliff Deck Park called the Southern Gateway Park right there by the zoo. I know Groobs has got, his family's been involved and knows it. I've worked closely with his father, Mike, and there's some huge news.
Shout out to Mike.
Yeah, shout
Love
out
you,
to
Mike.
Mike. That's right. Mike and Diane. That's
Mike
right.
and Diane. Shout out to Diane too.
That's right. That's right. And Becky. I mean, we just got to get
Becky.
and
Chris
Chris.
and all
My
them.
God, let's just
Yeah.
get the whole group's family out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, with what's going on with that, with some of the things that are happening, at Redbird Mall, would you believe it or not, some really cool things going on down there these days. There are. You need to read about it. There's some really great work. But I think the key is, Mike, everything has a point in time. And, Texas in general and Dallas specifically has been on a heater for about 7 years with new job growth creation. And, if we keep moving north, we're going to be in Oklahoma. So it's time. We've been talking about growing south, and we're actually doing it now. There's still some good deals to be had in Oak Cliff, but we love it. It's been our home for a long, long time. And, like Steve Young, I don't think I'm going anywhere anytime soon. So we've got a little more time to give back there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't live there now, but I did for many, many years, grew up there and everything. And it's still right there for me. So I'm pulling for it always.
I'd love to hear what was going on in your scene. Was the late 60s, early 70s? What was kind of the scene like? Because I know Jimmy Vaughn and maybe Bramhall, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was there, but did that come after your time? Were they a little later, or was that right on?
Actually, I first heard of Jimmy Vaughn when he was playing with a band called The Pendulums.
Okay.
And he was quickly branded as the best guitar player in Oak Cliff. And back then, we had 3 or 4 who were really, really good players, But Jimmy Vaughn was clearly the best of them. And he graduated from that band to a group called the Chessmen.
Okay, sure.
And the Chessmen were around for a while. Doyle Bramhall was another guy
that's right.
that was in the Chessmen. But their guitar player drowned in White Rock Lake one night. And that kind of slowed the roll of the Chessmen. And at that point, Jimmy was a little bit older, and it was time for him to make the next big step in his career. And he said, screw it all, I'm moving to Austin, like so many have over the years. And he did, and he got hooked up with the Fabulous Thunderbirds. You know the rest of the story.
Sure.
But, yeah, he was, for a long time, he was acknowledged by everybody who knew anything about it or played in bands or anything like that as Oak Cliff's best.
Okay.
And probably would have stayed until Stevie started getting really good.
That's right.
Had Jimmy stayed around here, but by then he was already gone to Austin, so Stevie had the whole room of Dallas to himself.
Yeah. Here's a fun fact. You probably know this, but maybe your listeners don't. This is pretty neat. Is Dole Bramhall Sr. and Stevie became really good friends.
Yes.
My favorite song that I assumed was a Stevie Ray Vaughan song because they released it posthumously was Life by the Drop, written by Dole Bramhall about his relationship with Stevie.
Yeah.
And it's just got so many good lyrics about looking back and how that's going to go. And you know, he's basically telling his friends, "We've had some great times, man, but you're about to go. That this is," and I'm totally cool with that. You know, I didn't know that backstory until you know, it was Rachel Stone wrote about it in the Oak Cliff Advocate probably a decade ago, and I was like, "Is that true?" And I did like, "Yeah, it is." Rachel doesn't mess around. If she writes something, it's true.
I'm not one bit surprised by that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you were close to Jimmy, you were close to Stevie because he was always around.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And if you played with Jimmy, sooner or later, Stevie was going to grab his guitar when you were setting up or something like that and plug it in and start going himself.
Yeah. Well, and so that continued. You know, Ray Wally Hubbard was over there back then, and B.W. Stevenson, and in the next generation, the Edie Brickells, and of course the Erykah Badu's, right? So I think to go back to the point, it always was an attraction, and maybe it is the landscape. It could be anything. It could be, you know. So I feel like I'm pretty new on it. You know, been there a minute since '98, but we're standing on the shoulders of giants like you that were there, that were the artists were coming up. But I do think now it's not where there's a lot of apartments and it's single family homes. And I think that the topography is so beautiful that it does attract the creative class. And everybody I know over there, I mean, they're not commuting into a big downtown office job. They're all entrepreneurs. They're all they all got 3 hustles going on.
Yeah.
And it just creates, you know, Monty Anderson did a really cool thing with an old Dixie Cup place down there. And, you know, there's probably 20 entrepreneurs and creatives down there. So anyway, that's my Chamber of Commerce for the Oak Cliff Chamber to come on down. We're you know, creatives and entrepreneurs. We want you to come to Oak Cliff.
We can make things happen for you down there.
That's right.
Down there like nowhere else.
That's right.
So let's get back to the way you do that thing you do. When you start to look for bands to book into the Kessler.
Yeah.
Do you get a hold of agents who take care of or handle guys that are out on tour? At a given time, do you deal with them?
Yeah, deal with them. That's a great way of putting it. There's a whole entourage as you grow up. For a lot of folks, especially locally, you go through the process, and you know our thing is, and it's no disrespect, it's just what we do. Is we want people that are creating their own original music. Right. I mean, it doesn't matter if you want to cover Dylan for a song or two because that's your influence. Go ahead. That's great. But we want to see you dedicate yourself to the craft of creating that. And then usually we'll start to hear about you. You go out and you put in your time. I mean, there's a lot of great coffee shops and other things. But eventually you hit our level and we know. And then we start talking about it. It's I'll give you the Bastards of Soul, who's in the news right now with just an incredible, I don't know if you've seen their documentary at all.
No, I haven't.
It's pretty heartbreaking. It's winning all kinds of awards. I mean, I don't know if you know their backstory, but Danny. Yeah. Okay. So, but as an example, you know, the Bastards didn't have a lead front man and they were doing some covers and it was cool, but you know, we got a lot of those bands. No disrespect to anybody. But they started saying, hey, I think this is different. And Jeff Skin Wade, you know, Skin called and said, we want to do something. And, you know, didn't really understand the concept of how bands can break this day and time. And as I said, it's changed a little bit. But when we were breaking Charlie, what we wanted, when I say we, Charlie broke himself. Let me just put that out there. All bands break themselves, okay? We just try to expedite it a little bit with the few tricks we have up our sleeve.
You're the vehicle.
We're a vehicle, and what we try to do, what we think is to attract the attention of good management and good agents. If a band can sell 500 tickets in their hometown, that's great. Hometown being Dallas, let's say. But if they can roll down to Austin and sell 500 tickets, well, that's pretty good. Austin, you know, you got a chance. But here's the litmus test. If you can roll into Houston and also sell 500 tickets, which is a no-joke tough market, Okay, Houston is. I mean, having lived it now for 10 years, it's a tough
Yeah.
market. But when you do that, if you're selling 500 plus tickets in 3 different major markets across Texas, you're going to be, there's enough there for someone to say, what can we do? And they start investing in you. They start saying, well, let's look at your dialogue. Let's look at your songbook. Let's look at this. And if you could do that, you can do it in Oklahoma City. So what we try to do now is we try to identify any opportunity we get for our local emerging guys that have been on the scene and they're moving up. We try to give them opportunities to find their equivalent. So Black Pumas is a great band that is blown up. They did 3 sold-out shows at the Kessler when they released their first album. Mm-hmm. But when they first came to Houston, it was no joke. So what we did is we got the best equivalent band, from Houston to who Black Pumas was in Austin. They're called the Sufferers. And we were able to put them on a co-bill where the Sufferers headline and Black Pumas came on and played. And again, as good as Eric is, as good as Adrian Casada, who's a good friend and a Grammy-winning producer, as good as those guys are, they're going to get there because the talent's undeniable, right?
Right.
It's using a baseball. Josh Young is going to get his shot. It's just, can you get him up? It's kind of like tonight, Rockers on the Hill, right? Mm-hmm. And it's probably, do you think we'd have brought him up if we were, in a pennant race? Maybe, maybe not. As good as he's throwing, probably, but he's going to get his shot. So I don't want
Thank you for reminding me of that, by the way.
That's right. So there's a lot of sports talk we can get back into, but specifically, I want to make this is what I think we bring to the table at the Kessler, and we've been doing it for 15 years, is when an agent is trying to bring someone like Hoser or James Bay over, they want them to come and do their United States tour. And what do you think they're looking for? A bunch of sellouts on paper. So what I feel like we're doing is we're punching a little above our weight. We've got people that care. We've got a great marketing deal, and it's not terribly hard to sell out the Kessler when you're touring through and you get good quality production and things sound good. Mm-hmm. And you check off that box, but they'll play us, they'll play some of the great rooms around the country, and we're in that kind of thing. But from a hometown, we want that to be reversed as well. We want our hometown folks like Joshua Ray Walker or Charlie or whatever, we want when they go out and they've got a big voice, we want them to be able to brag on their hometown that they've got someone. And, it's not just us. I mean, the Granada does a fine job. And as I said, there's a lot of, depending on the genre, Deep Ellum Art Company and, even the Double Wide. I mean, these are places that do that. So, yeah. So we try to be local first, national second. We try to really promote our own team, but we cross it now with the best bands out of Austin, the best bands out of Houston, the best bands, and we try to put them together to make a bill. And when you do that, and you've had the history of breaking some bands or what have you, now agents start to pick up the phone, and they call us. And as I mentioned, I've got 2 senior talent buyers, but everybody has an opinion, but they funnel it through them. I've said this more than once. Now we get into the dollars and cents side of it, right? And it gets a little more complicated. The bigger you go, the more money there is. And so at the end of that trail, I'm always involved on what can we do and, how much can we pay someone and that kind of thing.
How can you guys guesstimate how many tickets a band can sell? What goes into determining whether or not you need to sell 500 tickets and this band over here can or can't do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll say this, I lean on, and no disrespect to my former industry, is I was in the financial business and we had to try to forecast when we were picking, investments to put people into. And since I'm out of the industry, I can say this. We were often wrong, but never in doubt.
Yeah.
Often wrong, but never in doubt. So what I would say is old school folks would go out and just do it by gut. Okay. We do a little more than that. There's a band of independents that have equivalent rooms. So there's a guy named Shlomo. Okay. This is a true story. There's a guy named Shlomo that when we're opening up the Kessler Theater, No, Shlomo is a promoter and a buyer for a place called the City Winery. He's out of New York, and he so happens to be a right-handed pitcher for the Israeli national team.
All right.
Okay. Anyway, Shlomo's a cool cat, and we see each other at all the industry hangs and all that. But he's got a 300 cap room called the City Winery in New York, and I've got a 300 cap room seated called the Kessler. And I would ask him about certain things that I didn't know about, some of these great regional guys. And he would ask me about, what about Ray Wiley Hubbard? And I would say, oh, yeah, Ray's going to kill it, And so we started this little network. That's how it starts, right? And then you find someone in Austin, you find someone in Houston. And so you start to talk, and then, it doesn't mean just because someone can do 1,000 paid in Houston, they're going to do 1,000 paid in Dallas. San Antonio is probably the toughest market right now, outside of rock and roll, but they're changing that. Some Dallas guys, Brant Wood and those guys, have opened up a fantastic new venue called Stable Hall in San Antonio, but you got to change the dynamic. You got to get people used to coming out and all that. So there is a craft to it. There is an art to it. A lot of it has to do with understanding, talking to other people. The best example is, what did you do last time through the market? Is there anything new? Do you have a new album? Has there been something? That's the way it was up until the pandemic. Okay.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden you look up, and I'm going to miss his name. I love him because he's so watchable. Mark Rebillet. You ever heard of Mark Rebillet? I'm probably saying the last name.
Oh, Rebillet.
Roubellet or something.
Rebillet.
Rebillet. Good Lord, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
You would think with Cabaniss it's French, right?
Yeah.
And, okay.
I've heard the name.
Okay, Mark Rebillet. I knew I was going to screw it up. French. It's hard for me to do those things, even though Cabaniss is French. But here's a cat that, when Josh put on the 10th annual, I guess this was 2019. We were doing Homegrown, the 10th annual, and I helped him book that. And we had Mark on, early. I mean, we had Black Pumas on that bill. It was Tripping Daisy. It was the Toadies. This is a hell of a bill, right?
Yeah.
We're really proud. Wanted Josh to go out in style. But anyway, here's a guy we put on for $500, and next thing you know, he's kind of playing bigger and bigger things. And then the pandemic hit him. He was getting millions and millions because he's so dynamic. And so he's obviously, just sold 3 nights out at Canton Hall in a row, could have played the Factory if he wanted to. So when the train's pulling out of the station, I learned this, with Black Pumas and others, sometimes that momentum can go really, really fast. So what we're trying not to do is, if we think someone and we like the music and everybody's saying they're breaking and it's good, we'll get as aggressive as we can now, because we have the ability to walk them up to another venue next time. And agents are pretty good. If we take a shot on somebody and they've got a deep roster, let's say we put $10,000 on an emerging band and they clunk it and we lose 5. The agent technically works for the artist, but they also got to come back to the rooms, and they just can't burn us, right?
Yeah.
We're not going anywhere.
Right.
So they kind of come back and say, hey, next time, let me see if I can't do this, and, what have you. So it really is about relationships and stuff like that. And sometimes we take a shot and it doesn't work, and sometimes we get some things and then they're gone, and we never see them again, that happens too. So there's a little bit of art to it. We don't miss often. And the way we don't miss is there's a little thing called a guarantee, and there's a little thing called a bonus. And so historically what we like to do, now I'm going to give all my trade secrets away, right? The agent will help us understand about where their average ticket price should be. Then you can multiply that by your capacity, and that tells you what your total gross potential is. And then generally, depending on who the artist is, we like to come in at about 40% to 50% of gross as a guarantee, and give them an opportunity to earn another 15 or 20 if they sell out.
Yeah.
Giving us about 30% in the middle, where we can pay our freight, keep a little for ourselves, and then, of course, we keep our ancillaries. So there is a little bit of a business to it, and there sometimes is disagreements, but we try not to be disagreeable. But here's the deal. Once we say we're going to do that show at that price or whatever, that's it. Either we win or we lose, right? And so if you think about that, we're doing that about 400 to 500 times a year. So we better be winning. But at the same token, we want to make sure our artists are taken care of because they are the talent.
Yeah.
We want them to have a good experience with us.
It's an amazing business, man.
There is a business to the music business.
Yes, there is.
And there has to be a few business people in it. And again, I love music. And when I go down on a show night, nobody's asked me about business. Edwin's here to get his, vibe on and all that. That'll all wait till Monday, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you more vibe on guy or business guy, would you say?
I am the business guy for the organization for sure.
But I mean, as far as what you're into it for goes.
Oh God, no! I'm not into it for the business side. Let me just say this: I have investors, I have a family, I have staff. I have commitments. The city's put some money behind us on this last one, so for sure they have to have confidence that I can drive home what I'm doing. So I'm very analytical based on my background, and I can project this out. But I mean, nobody projects out a freaking pandemic, right? How do you survive that?
Yeah.
But, we're 15 years in. We've survived a hurricane. We've survived a pandemic. We've had good employees that we've lost to cancer or what have you. We've had all kinds of things happen to us. And I think a lot of people get into it purely for the vibe and realize pretty damn quick it is a business as well.
Yeah.
And, some survive and some don't. And, that's unfortunate. There's a real heavy top down that the bigs are coming way down market and squashing the smalls right now. So
yeah,
that's a little frightening. That's happening all over though.
How did you get through the pandemic?
Fortunately I had a farm and, I got out, we got out to Athens and just kind of stayed. We shut the front gate and, I restored an old historic log cabin. We were checking in. There wasn't a lot to do. I cut my salary, went off salary. I'm still president of the organization, had a small salary. But I cut that, and then we were able to transition a lot of our gig workers. We work closely. This is nice having relationships. We work closely with the Workforce Commission, a guy we knew named Brian Daniels, really great guy. He was over economic development at the state, and he had moved over to workforce about 6 months before the pandemic. So we had this relationship, and we talked to him about the gig economy, and we said, historically that hadn't paid, but it'd be great if they could. So we were able to transition a lot of our employees over to unemployment, and they were getting a stipend at federal and there. And so that was good. And then my core staff, everybody went. At first, we stayed on. We got the PPP like everybody else. We thought it was going to be over, and it wasn't. And then we just went down to 75% salaries, and then we went down to 50% salaries. But we kept everybody. We kept them. We sold a hell of a lot of merchandise, T-shirts that all went back into our employees that were really struggling, if you will. But we all, like everybody else, we just figured out a way to survive, and knock on wood, every single one of my people came back. Maybe I lost a couple of bartenders or people that are great people and love to have them back. They decided to go different directions, but that's 50, 60 plus people that all came back. So I think we did as good as we could and better than most, and we came back.
Did the room just totally shut down during the pandemic?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you'll see, which is kind of ironic. There were some folks that were doing some things, kind of like we talked about the Bastards of Soul. Some of that stuff was actually shot during the pandemic.
Yeah,
they were doing this guy named Trammell Escrow. I've got to put the S on there. Who was doing a thing with EarthX. Paul Levatino produced a lot of stuff for EarthX for him. But Paul was also the guy that was driving a lot of the videography for the Bastards of Soul. And, I just remember I took my daughters and my wife, and it was great. They had I'm not sure, it wasn't KC, but it was someone like that from KC and the Sunshine Band. And I walked on, and there's no audience, but there is a full blown on KC and the Sunshine kind of band performance taking place at the Kessler Theater with nobody in there except for the people producing it. And me and my wife and daughters, and I was like, oh my God, how incredible is that? Because I hadn't had that kind of feeling of soul feeling. And, but that's also, they use that same time to do some of the Masters of Soul document. I'd highly recommend and I don't know how you get a hold of it right now. It may not be out there because they're making all the film festivals, if they will. And some of them are super badass film festivals, winning all kinds of awards. So kudos to Paul and, all the people that were part of that. Cause I'm not going to give the story away, but it's one of my favorite music documentaries of all time. And it so happens to be with a bunch of people I know about. It's not just because it was in my venue groups. I know that's what you're thinking. But
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's exactly right.
But I know he was thinking that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so where's the Longhorn going, do you think?
Yeah, so...
I mean, are you satisfied with the way this has gone so far?
I think I realized early on this was a 4-year commitment. And so we bought, I don't know if you know this, we have 6 acres over there.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a pretty big haul. And the key was to get the main engine back up and running, which is the Longhorn Ballroom, okay? But let's just be clear. Dallas, the city of Dallas, people have forgot about that end of Dallas.
Yes,
right?
they have.
I'm talking like a 1972 traffic light right there. I'm talking about, the roads jacked up. I mean, I'm between a bunch of scrap yards and a cement batch processing plant, and those guys have been there for 100 years. Why would you give any attention to that, right? So I knew going in that I needed the city to get really involved. They needed to do some things. But here's the cool part is, we worked through, it came out of bankruptcy. I was able to work with some people to purchase it. I didn't have the funds to do that because we weren't sure if we were going to be open. And but I had an option to go in and buy it within 1 year. Okay, at a premium, so I was going to give them their money. If I'm not anything, I'm a good investor. And fortunately, we got Saver Stages, came home, and we got back from being in the hole to the top of the hole. So we're back to even, right? So we purchased it. It took us a year to get all the planning done. We got our zoning changed that allows outdoor music by right, which is a code word for boutique amphitheater. So that was always in the mix, but they were going to have to change the streets. They were going to have to get your infrastructure built out front, and that's the cities. So I was able to get and work with them. It turned out the bipartisan infrastructure law was a big, it depends on your perspective. Let me just say this. If someone drops $1 on the ground and it's just sitting there and I don't know, I'm not too proud to bend over and pick up $1. But I did not put the bipartisan infrastructure law. I'm fiscally pretty conservative. But if the dollar's on the ground, I'm going to go try to get it, right? So we were able to work with the city to get some federal funds to really change up the landscape over there. When I say landscape, I'm talking about the road and the traffic light and all that. So that is in the works. They break ground at the end of this year, and they'll be done mid-2025. At the same token, my concrete's being poured, my steel's coming out of the ground in the backyard, which is 2 acres. So it'll be a 6,500 cap amphitheater. We'll open in 2025, like we did with the Longhorn. We'll ease into it, proof of concept. By 2026, we should be hitting on all cylinders. But right now, we are starting to hit on all cylinders at the Longhorn itself. But we had another 20,000 square foot building that had been shut down since the 80s. We start moving tenants into that this fall. So, we could talk in more depth. 2025 will be our 75th anniversary. We hope to have not only the Longhorn open, which it currently is, but all of my tenants moved in the other building and the amphitheater open in as little as 6 to 8 months. So pretty exciting times.
Indeed.
That's exactly
You're
right.
a developer. You're a guy who makes things happen.
Well, I don't know that I'm a developer, but it's
you're a conceptualizer.
Yeah. Do you know John Fulbright by chance? He's an artist, and he wrote a fun song called God Above, GAWD. And he said, I knew I was doing something right when the atheists and the Christians all thought that song was for them. So I will say first and foremost, I'm a neighborhood guy, but probably some people like developers see me as a developer, and neighborhood folks see me as a neighborhood folks. But hell,
so
I'm just.
which are you?
I'm just a dude.
Are you all things to all people?
I think community matters. So I'm really, I think at the end of the day, a neighborhood guy, right? But I am also an entrepreneur and a businessman and all those other things. But I figured, if you can do good and do well at the same time, do it, and that's what we try to do. That's our ethos for everybody that works for us is we try to have fun. We try to be, fiscally prudent, make a little bit of money, but we also try to put it back into our community being artists as well as our geographic community.
There you go. There's your big takeaway from this. If you can do good and do well at the same time, do it. That's the way you should live your life. Edwin, it has been wonderful talking to you.
Man, that went quick.
I wanted to get into a little depth on the way you do that thing you do, and I think we accomplished that to a certain degree today.
Well, if you need any good time going to sleep, you can listen to. I'm bilingual. I speak honky tonk and economic development.
You were a blast, man. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you guys having me on Groups. It was a pleasure seeing you as always.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Shoopy. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Beckham. And thank you guys out there for attending to this and watching what we do here at Your Dark Companion. Love to hear from you. Love to know what you think about what we got going over here. Anytime, any place, any way. I'm on Twitter at the Old Gray Wolf. I'm on Facebook. I'm even on Instagram, if you can believe that.
He might even pull a Shannon Sharp.
I might. Could happen. Could happen. Before we go away, let me ask you this. What if you could free yourself of pain and anxiety and sleepless nights? Would you do that? What if I told you you could do it naturally? Well, let me tell you about the CBD House of Healing. This is a women-owned CBD boutique, and they can help. They would like to help. They carry only products from their lab made to meet the highest quality and purity standards. Their owner is also an RN. She emphasizes building trusted relationships through education. They give you the knowledge to care for yourself. That's their ultimate goal. That's what they're all about. Find your relief from the aches, the pains, the emotional stress and drain, and sleep again. Begin your healing at the House of Healing. Go to cbddallas.com. Find them at 8550 Plano Road, Suite 101 in Dallas. They are the House of Healing. Now, while I've got you, let me tell you about the Smoky Rose. Established in 2016, Smoky Rose is a Tex-Mex barbecue joint. Now, you may think, well, what are they? Is this neither fish nor fowl, one of those things? Do they do this? Do they do that? Exactly what's going on here. You got to go there and find out for yourself. It will be worth it. Believe me when I tell you that. It is in the heart of the community in East Dallas. They serve meats that are smoked in their wood-burning smoker. Low and slow is the way they roll. That's the right way to bring out the best flavors. Everything is made with the highest quality ingredients. Every bite is as good as the last. The drinks are made with special care and the vast knowledge of the owner, the great David Cash. They are located in East Dallas, right across the street from the Arboretum. Smoky Rose has the perfect seat for you on their patio. It's open year-round. You can enjoy food, drinks, and take in beautiful surroundings. They are open for brunch on Sundays. Happy hour rolls out from 3 to 6. 8602 Garland Road in Dallas is the Smoky Road. And don't forget, 19th of September, we're going to be there from 4 until 6. Yes, your Dark Companion will be podcasting live from Smoky Rose from 4 until 6. That'll be followed by live music with Bill Brooks. So come see us September 19th at the Smoky Rose. This has been your Dark Companion. Thank you for watching.
All right. I'm going to go take my pants off.
Your Dark Companion is a Stolen Water Media presentation.